Seeing as this is a new channel, I thought it would be a good idea to explain to newcomers what Beyblade X is and the details behind what makes it such a great game. Even if you're an experienced blader though, please stick around, as the more people who watch the video, the more likely it is to be pushed out to new bladers, so it will help to grow the community. Beyblade X is the latest version of the classic game from the early 2000s. While there have been multiple iterations of the game, X is becoming by far the most popular and is taking over in many countries around the world in a way that hasn't been seen before. The idea of Beyblade is that both players launch a spinning top, known as a Beyblade, into an arena and aim to either outspin their opponent's Beyblade or to knock it into a pocket. While this may seem very simple, and in some ways it is, there's far more to it than meets the eye. Let's start off with the scoring system. If you outspin the opponent, you get 1 point, and that's called a spin finish. If you knock them into one of the small pockets, you get 2 points, and that's called an over finish. And if you knock them into the larger pocket between the other two, you get 3 points, and that's called an extreme finish, as that pocket is known as the extreme zone. It's also an incredibly satisfying thing to do. Knocking someone out the top of the arena varies in how many points you get depending on the scene, but I've seen it be anywhere from 0 to 3 points. The only other way to score points is to burst your opponent's Beyblade, but to understand what that means, you first need to understand the Beyblades and the parts themselves. At the start of Beyblade X, each Beyblade consisted of 3 parts: a blade, a ratchet, and a bit. The blade is the part that goes on top and will make contact with the opponent's bay. This will have a huge influence on what playstyle the bay is best suited to. The ratchet slots onto the bottom of the blade, and each will have a different shape or height to change certain bay characteristics. The bit slots into the bottom of the ratchet and is the point of contact between the Beyblade and the stadium floor. This probably has the largest impact on the behaviour of the bay and will affect how you should launch the Beyblade and what strategy you should implement. A burst finish is when either the ratchet or the bit comes off of the blade within the battle, and it will grant 2 points to the person who managed to burst their opponent's bay. While having just 3 components is still the case for a lot of bays now, in more recent times they've released different types of Beyblades that have extra layers involved, like an assist blade between the blade and ratchet, or an overblade that goes on top of the blade. There are even some now with ratchets built into the blade, so you only need the bit to use it. You can't put these extra layers on a random Beyblade though, as they're only compatible with other bays of that series. On the other hand, in 99% of cases, ratchets and bits are fully customizable between Beyblades, so there can be a lot of experimentation and optimization to find the best combos. Beyblade combos fit into 4 categories, although at some point I will be making a video on how I feel it should be recategorized. But to make things simple, you have attack, stamina, defense, and balance. Attack types are quite self-explanatory. They're usually aggressive Beyblades that have high recoil and are aiming to knock the opponent into a pocket or burst them. Usually their blades will have more aggressive points of contact on them for added recoil and are quite heavy, but this will often make them less balanced, which means they won't have much stamina, so if they fail to knock the opponent out early in the battle, they'll run out of steam and lose to a spin finish. A stamina type is one that spins for a long time and is aiming to outlast the opponent. Usually, a good stamina blade will be as round as possible to preserve energy when making contact with the opponent, and to be as balanced as possible too. The best ones will also have most of their weight distributed to the outer part of the Beyblade too. They do have downsides, like the fact that they can be burst a bit more easily by strong attack types, but I'll talk about it later as I haven't yet covered some relevant information. Defense types are designed to soak up hits from attack types without going into a pocket or bursting, and then go on to outspin them. The issue with defense types is that they lose hard to stamina types, as they have no threat against them and they can't spin for as long either. Balance types are anything that doesn't fall into a specific strategy, so it could be something with decent stamina and defense, or with decent attack and stamina, without completely committing to one playstyle. Often, balance types are particularly good into attack types in my opinion, for reasons I'll get into in another video. Now let's talk about ratchets, as it can be somewhat confusing. Ratchets have 2 relevant numbers in their names. The first number you'll see is referring to the number of protrusions they have, and that can be anything from 0 to 9. The second number will be the height of the ratchet, and that can be anything from 50 to 85. So an example of a ratchet name could be 360, for 3 protrusions at a 60 height. Generally, lower ratchets are better as they're more stable, and they have a lower burst risk as they're not quite as exposed. The usual ratchet heights are 50, 60, 70 and 80, although 60 is the most popular height due to the fact that 50 height ratchets don't lock on as tightly to the blade, so are prone to being burst. There are also ratchet heights at increments of 5, so 55, 65 and 85. These are known as simple ratchets, but these are all extremely burst prone, and I'll explain why in a bit. The way to know the height of a ratchet is to look at the bottom of it. There'll be some indented lines on either side of the hole where the bit goes. 2 lines on one side and 3 on the other means 50 height. 3 lines on each side means 60. 3 lines on one side and 4 on the other means 70. And 4 lines on both sides means 80. So essentially, each line has a value of 10. The number of protrusions will impact the balance of a ratchet, as well as the weight and how easy it is to burst. For example, the 960 ratchet is considered to be the most difficult to burst, and generally odd numbers of sides are better than even numbers, as the even-sided ratchet protrusions tend to stick out awkwardly so they can be easily hit and burst. Ratchets like 160 also have additional bonuses, like the fact that it means your Beyblade can jump out of pockets within a battle due to the deliberate imbalance. I hope you've enjoyed the video so far. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more Beyblade X content. Now we can discuss the bits. As I mentioned before, these are the most crucial part when it comes to defining the characteristics of a Beyblade. For example, a defensive shaped blade on an attacking bit becomes an attack type. An attacking shaped blade on a stamina bit becomes a stamina type. That doesn't mean it will be particularly good at that role, but the bit will force its behaviour to become that type. Bits can come in various different heights too, and some have high burst resistance and others low burst resistance. You can tell this by looking at if they have a thicker band around this part of the bit. The reason for this is because the band means that you can't take the ratchet off of the blade while the bit is in it, unless it gets hit really hard. This means that most of the time, the only way to burst it will be to knock the bit out of the ratchet instead, which isn't as easy to do. A low burst resistance bit means you can easily take the ratchet off while the bit is still in it, which means it can be burst more easily if the opponent hits your ratchet at the right angle. I mentioned before about simple ratchets being super burst prone. The reason for this is because it can easily be taken off even when a high burst resistant bit is in it, so it's essentially always in a low burst resistant mode no matter the bit. Typically, more attacking bits have high burst resistance and stamina bits have low burst resistance, as otherwise stamina types would likely be too overpowered, so the additional burst risk is added to balance the game. Before I talk about another way they've managed to balance the game, I first need to talk about the launchers. There are 2 viable launcher types, the winder launcher or ripcord launcher and the string launcher. I believe that for a new player, it's easier to get power with a winder launcher, but for more experienced players, they're able to get a good amount of power with a string launcher while also having slightly superior control. Personally, I use a winder launcher as it feels more comfortable for me, but some of my teammates are incredible with a string launcher, so it really is just personal preference. The stadium itself is another way that they manage to balance the meta in Beyblade X. While there are a few different Beyblade X stadiums, the stadium of choice for tournaments is the regular Takara Tomy Extreme Stadium, and none of the others feel even remotely competitive. Stadiums in Beyblade X have something known as an extreme rail. The extreme rail goes around the outside of the arena and has gear teeth on it. When a Beyblade's bit touches the rail, it grips onto it and speeds up around the outside of the arena and gets flung at high speed into the middle, ideally hitting the opponent's Beyblade into the extreme zone. Typically, those with fewer gears tend to be better, as they lose less stamina when they touch the extreme rail, and they're more controlled and less volatile when doing so. The extreme rail gives attack types a good way to knock out opponents though, and it prevents stationary defense combos from being too strong, as they'll be sat in the middle like a sitting duck ready to be smacked into a pocket. This adds a huge strategic element when it comes to launching though, as in some matchups you'll be trying to avoid being hit by attack types, and in others you'll be the one trying to instigate the contact. Another part of the strategy is building tournament decks. Your deck consists of 3 Beyblades with no repeating parts throughout, so you essentially need 9 different parts at least. When battling, you pick an order you want your Beyblades in, and you battle against your opponent in that order until someone reaches either 4 or 7 points depending on the format. If you haven't reached that score after the first 3 matchups, both players turn around to reshuffle their deck order, and then keep going until someone reaches the score required to win. There are a lot of great mind games required when deciding your deck order before the match and in the reshuffles, as it can have a huge impact on the result, and it tests your ability to read your opponent and outthink them. In conclusion, Beyblade X is a fantastic game that requires good planning and theory crafting, as well as good launch technique and quick thinking within battles. But despite all this, there is a luck element that allows newer players to have a chance against anybody. I'm good proof of that, as someone who won my first ever tournament despite there being over 60 people, a lot of whom were the top ranked players in the scene. Despite this, however, the best players get consistently good results, which proves that the skill and understanding element plays a major part in it all. It's all about raising the odds of winning in your favour, using various different methods and skills. Thanks for watching guys. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. See ya!